All right, welcome to Mr. Miller's Woodshop Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Miller, and so I went to IWF last week, and I can't wait to get into it with you. I'll probably have 3 installments of these episodes to get to tell you all about it. It was like heaven on earth. Honestly, it was like nothing I could ever describe to you, but I'm going to attempt here in the next few episodes of Mr. Miller's Woodshop Podcast. Please don't forget to rate and review the show. I want to do a good job at this, so please give me 5 stars, tell me why, and share it with your friends. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and we are now on YouTube in this podcast, so if you don't like the medium that you're listening to, you can also see it on YouTube. It should hopefully just be a audio recording. I don't feel the need to show any video on these podcasts at the moment, but you can definitely pick up that audio at YouTube now, so that's our little commercial there. And our sponsor, should thank our sponsors here, Safety Speed Manufacturing out of Minnesota, USA. They are sponsoring this episode, so big thanks to them. They're your flagship panel saw creator. They're the ones who invented the panel saw way back in the middle of the last century. They've also got wide belt sanders in 43-inch and 37-inch capacities, single belt. They have got screw pocket machines of several varieties. And, of course, they have got their edge banding equipment available in hot air and glue pot models. I'm grateful to them. They could have employed a swimsuit model to travel with them to IWF, but they didn't. They hired me, and so I was the unicorn in the booth that was building stuff, and I'm going to talk about that now. So why the heck did they send me down to IWF? It was at great cost to them. They picked up all the travel and all the hotel and good portion, almost all of the meals. In fact, they paid my way to go. And so why the heck did they bring me down there is part of what I want to kind of transition out of our commercial here too. So I've been working here all summer. Really enjoyed it. Did a seminar with the staff. Did several other marketing and sales stuff for them. I'll have a dedicated podcast episode. Probably, honestly, it's going to probably be in the middle to late fall. So I'll have that laid out, everything that I've been doing here. But they sent me down as a member of the sales team just to gather some leads, talk about our equipment, get to know the industry. And Brian Donahue is a big-time player in this woodworking machinery industry, and he's a part of the National Woods Board as well as the Woodworking Industry Association. And so he's got connections all over, and he saw this as a fruitful thing for my own professional development. And I did my best to really bring the house as far as advocating for their machinery, because I think their saws and their screw pocket machines are top tier. I honestly, I'm not paid to say this, I think theirs are second to none when it comes to panel saws and screw pocket machines. So I think that's really cool, and so I was able to advocate for that. I'm just playing the part of salesman. I'm not a salesman. If anybody knows me, I'm definitely not a sales. But I love shooting the breeze about woodworking, and so that's what I got to do. I got to talk to lots and lots of woodshop owners, cabinet makers, millwrights, lumber people. It was just, like I said, it was a dream come true being down there. And I can shoot the breeze with those guys all day long, but then when it came to actually turning the corner and making the sale, that's when I would tag in for one of the sales staff here, whether it be Sean or Arian or Megan or Steve. So they were really helpful in that regard. But I built some projects in the booth. I developed a curriculum using Safety Speed's equipment. And so I built a bookshelf the first day. The plans on that are already done and live. The videos for that are upcoming. Our video production team should be done here towards the end of the month with developing those videos. That was that professional shoot we did a couple weeks ago. So you guys can look for that. And that, what I understand, that'll actually be on the Safety Speed website. And so I've actually had a couple people reach out to me for that, and I'm horrible at turning around and trying to navigate the Instagram messaging app. It's a little bit difficult for me. I'm definitely an email guy over Instagram, but I'm trying to be where everybody else is, so that's why it's partially why I'm there. But it should be on Safety Speed's website here to come. So that first day was the bookshelf. That's our professional level cabinet project for any woodworking class that is interested. All these plans are free, by the way. All right, so just reach out to me or Safety Speed if you ever need them. Second day, I built our intermediate project, our amateur project. That was a cornhole set, and we actually enjoyed that at the show. And some of the lulls of around lunchtime and whatnot, we actually stored them in the booth across the aisle from us, where they had some blocking from some of their equipment, so that people wouldn't be wandering in. And so it worked out perfect. We could have those out, and we kind of advanced our booth a little bit right there, which was pretty cool. And I had a copy of the plans right there, and I gave out so many copies of these plans. I was really underprepared, honestly, because towards the end of the show, the last day, I built our half-sheet coffee table, and the plans for that are totally complete with video, if anybody is interested in those for the fall. Made those, and had a lot of fun. And kind of some of the strategy behind that too is at a woodworking show at the IWF, there's lots going on, and you're talking over dust collection and other machines running, and so it's kind of to make some noise. But in the past, they have done projects like this at Safety Speed, and a lot of it, according to our head sales guy, you're just kind of making decorative firewood, showing off our saws, because with some of the scoring blades and high-tech advanced things that they've got, like it creates a very nice and powerful cut. And so even with this thin veneered sheet stock that I was using, some of it was even pre-finished, and we were getting really crisp cuts on that. So that was really fun to see, and especially fun to show, because I would be ripping on the midway fence, pushing a piece through horizontally on their SR5U panel saw, my baby, my favorite of their machineries, and they're actually giving one to Coon Rapids. It's actually coming to the school a week from today on Monday, so I'm excited for that. But I'm ripping something down like that, and people are looking and kind of turning their heads like, oh my God, I didn't know you could use a panel saw. He's got that up off the ground, he's not bent over, and he's got that sawed in 90-degree angle. What in the world's going on? And so that's just that was my opportunity to look at those people who had their heads kind of cocked and like wondering what the heck is going on, and just ask them questions, ask them where they're from. And it was a real eye-opening thing for me, because I'm not I don't get out all that much. So to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and see people of all different cultures and races, and people all over the world, getting to know them is just fascinating and fun. So I get to break the ice that way, which I look at the projects that I've made, and for me, if I'm dedicating 100% of my focus and time to doing these projects, I can probably get them all done within an hour. But all these side conversations, and then, oh my gosh, hey, that person actually wants to buy that saw, and so I pass that over to our sales staff, and I kind of slowly exit the conversation. But it's a lot like building anything at school in the wood shop. Usually I'm doing something, and a student will come up and say, hey, what are you doing? And I give them the answer and talk them through some of the stuff, and it's a big distraction, and sometimes honestly a headache if I'm trying to move fast. And as much as I had scheduled during the show, it had to be a focused thing. But I wanted to bring the house for Safety Speed and sell some of their saws. And so in the times that I wasn't building, or if I didn't want to quite start first thing in the morning, maybe I wanted to drink my coffee first, just talk to some of the people walking around. A lot of people would wander into our booth asking about, hey, I didn't know you guys made sanders. Can you tell me a little bit about them? And truth be told, some of our sales staff is still rather green, and so if there was a detailed question about the platen on the wide belt sander, they'd say, hey, Bobby, you know anything about these sanders? And I'd say, oh, absolutely. What's your question? And so, one of the guys' questions was about the graphite used on the platen inside that wide belt, and I was able to answer that and shoot the breeze a little bit and kind of gather some intel, because it's really the philosophy of Safety Speed is they want to build a product, and in order to sell it, they want to make sure it's going to fit your shop. Is it going to be too big? Is it going to be too large? Is it not going to be enough for you? Like, what's the avenue there? And they've networked with enough other manufacturers and machinery companies where they might even have a name for you if they can't be the ones to sell to you. And so that's really neat. I see a lot of integrity with this corporation, and I'm just so glad to be a part of it. I probably wouldn't be if this place wasn't 10 minutes from my house, and all the connections Brian has is just a really cool thing, because they see the value of wood shop in schools today, and they've got their hands in all the other pots of those who are of like mind and trying to bring woodshop back into public schools. So played salesman, had fun talking woodworking, and I talked to everybody from mom and pop shops to big-time distributors, and sometimes on accident. So I wasn't their first pick to go out and sell these saws. In fact, I didn't even have the app for the taking down of leads. The structure of the show is that everybody's got a lanyard on with their name and their location, and if they're a business, the name of their business, if they're a distributor, if they're an educator, they had those kind of distinctions on there with the QR code. And so those machinery companies could scan that QR code, and then you were able to customize it to, see if this is a hot lead, where they're at in the country, what their timeline was, and any other notes that you wanted to document on that. And so I was able to take cell phone pictures of it. You guys know I love QR codes, and so they would just scan that QR. The other sales staff would scan that QR code off of the picture from my phone, and so that's how I got to be the alley-oop man. I wasn't the guy slam dunking it, but I tried to throw up a couple of alley-oops to our sales staff here, and I think I did that several occasions. Just going back through my photos, I got probably 20 potential leads for the company, so I'm hopeful that I was hopeful that those proved fruitful. I talked to Arian this morning, and he said that some of them actually have been. So that makes me happy, because I got so much out of this. And I'll talk a little bit more about the teaching side of this in another episode. But just talking to these other companies was fascinating to me. And at a time where we were really rather busy, I noticed a couple just looking at one of our screw pocket machines, and I'm a friendly guy, so I just came up and said, hey, do you guys have any questions? Can I answer some questions for you? And the man didn't speak any English at all, and it was revealed to me that the gal was from Vietnam, and they're looking to break out into the Taiwan cabinet-making industry, and they're a dealer, is what I kind of understood. There was a breakdown in communication based on the thickness of her accent, and I just couldn't understand it all that well, but when it wasn't, they appeared to be a couple, and I thought, maybe they're just here because they got a one-man shop. I talked to a dozen one-man shops, and those are my favorite people to talk to, honestly, those small shops that, maybe just be the guy with a couple other employees, and they're just rocking cabinets out like crazy. But this couple was a distributor, and, there's some other little things you got to kind of worry about that, if they're trying to rip off the machine. And so I was schooled up on all that beforehand. And when she said that she wants to take each machine back for testing at their facility, then they will determine which one they want to carry in their dealership. I thought, oh my gosh. And so I asked her, well, what are you thinking about an initial order? And she said, we would probably do 15. And I just jaw dropped. Like, I couldn't believe the opportunity to sell that many machines on I think it was my first or second day at the show. Like, I didn't know that was going to be an opportunity that just kind of falls into my lap based on me just kind of being friendly, striking up a conversation with people, just, kind of wandering by the booth and stopping quick. And so, long story longer, we fast forward to this morning. I have a meeting with Arian, and he's the salesman that I handed off to. He actually spoke with them this morning, and I suppose it would be their night, and our morning. He spoke with them earlier today, is what I'm trying to say. That they actually want to buy. We have 3 models of screw pocket machines here at Safety Speed, and they actually want to buy 10 of each and deliver it as soon as possible, because they've done their homework. They probably saw a dozen other screw pocket manufacturers, and they did their homework. And now here Monday morning, that next full working day after the show, they want to buy all those machines. And so that's just, I hope that I brought my worth there. And I'm sure there were a million other opportunities that I just squandered because of my lack of sales ability. I mean, I can mark my experience as a salesman at the start of the show, basically. I mean, I've really never had to sell anything else. I'm trying to sell myself a little bit more here through this venture and this project of being more open online and more accessible online, but it's really not me. I told this to several people during the show, but I really kind of embody and embrace that Ron Swanson Parks and Rec character, where he's just content to hang out in his wood shop, hang out in his office, have as little conversations as possible, and he's a happy man. And I really feel that, but I also see that leads to the demise of our industry and the further fracturing between that divide between education and industry. So I can't do that. I can't in good conscience do that. So, yeah, that was a little bit about the booth itself. It was a lot of work putting it together, and I had no part of that. I actually flew out. I was the last one to come in. I had a horrible experience of delays getting out there, so I actually missed that first dealer day, which was honestly devastating. I was so bummed when that happened, but it was a different kind of thing experiencing the sales side of it. And we had the sales guys in the booth and sales gals in the booth, but Brian Donahue is the president of Safety Speed here. He's also on the ownership team, and he's got ties. He's on the board of the National Woods Board, and he's also connected to the Wood Industry Association. And those two are the big-time boards that are trying to bridge the divide between education and industry. And it just so happened we were so busy that, it was that first day. It was the first full day that I was there on Tuesday. And I'm, doing the sales thing. I'm trying to finish up that shelf, which is a professional level project. And I'm, getting pulled this and that direction. And every, TMI, but every trip to the bathroom, I try to take a little bit longer route back because I just see all these CNCs and robots and other things like that at the show, and like, oh my God, I got to go see that, and just quick walk by. Like I want to sell some sauce for him. Was my mission that first day, and I was also obliged to build that project, and we actually had some technical difficulties and delays at times where maybe someone wanted to see a little bit thicker edge banding, and so they adjust the edge bander machine, and okay, I got to get it adjusted back, and all those little things that happen. And it's not like it's a difficult machine to run. Our edge bander is that perfect entry-level machine, but as far as like getting it set up wise, it does take some time, and you're getting pulled away and this and that, and time for calibration is really fleeting. And so it was about middle of the day, maybe 1 or 2, when Brian said, hey, do you want to go to the National Woods Board presentation? And I actually had that on a wish list beforehand, and I had kind of decided, like, I'm going to go all in for Safety Speed because they're flying me out. They're doing all this stuff. And then an hour before, he's like, hey, you want to go? And I'm like, oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Just wipe the drool off my mouth. Yes, I would love to go to that National Woods Board presentation. And so he's like, okay, well, we got about an hour, and we'll head on out of there. And I thought, okay, well, that's going to take an hour, 3 to 4, and then the show closes at 5. So I want to get this shelf done as soon as possible. And it worked out to where I was just cruising on the shelf, got it done. And I didn't have as many tools as I have here, even at the showroom here at Safety Speed, and ended up, having to kind of MacGyver some things. But if you've been around woodworking as long as I have, you kind of figure out some of those tips and tricks. And so my project looked like it does in the plans. However, I didn't have a shelf pin boring machine, didn't have a nail gun, didn't have some of these other common things that you would need in woodworking. Actually, no, I did have a nail gun, little brad nailer, so I got that together. But yeah, it was a challenge at times, and I got that thing done and basically stood up, wiped the sweat off of my brow, and then Brian's like, hey, we got to go. And I had the drill in my hand at that last minute, and I just set it on one of the machines and walked out of there. And just this time, middle of the day, just super dehydrated, haven't eaten anything, breath just horrible. And here I'm trying to be a salesman, so that's just 1, 2, 3 punch. So it's not a great thing. And we actually ended up being late to the presentation, but I was just, honestly, the first reaction I got is there was only like 10 people in the room, and you could have easily fit 100. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I sat up front. I sat by one of the guys that I had connected with earlier, another woodshop teacher, really the Tom Brady of our industry. And I sat up kind of close to him, and he acknowledged me, and then I was quiet for the whole presentation. But if you go back to that first episode where I lay out my mission and vision, it was an echo. His presentation was essentially an echo of that entire mission and vision podcast that I did. And his was far more articulate. It was backed up with data, and it had a lot more calls to action than I have in mine. And I just I see that as like, I'm not trying to be the guy or the person, the hero to do this. I want to be involved in all these networks and whatnot. And so he kind of laid out the path and the way to get involved. And at the end, I was that annoying guy when he says, all right, does anybody have any questions? And I raised my hand, and it's like, okay, I want to be a part of this curriculum. I want to be a part of this. Like, how do I do all this? And the Chet Miller, he's the big time guy at the mill, the head teacher over there. He was able to answer some of the questions, and the gal from the Cabinet Makers Association, Amanda Conger, was there handing out stuff in the back. So I got flyers from them. I mean, they did a great job, because someone like me just starved for an industry partner like that it was excellent. So I'm sitting there the entire time stewing, because it's like, oh my gosh, I got to be a part of this. Like, this is like, I'm kind of hoping, like, come on, man, talk faster. I want to get to know more. Like, it was about a half-hour presentation, and then I stayed about another half hour networking with some of the other teachers and industry partners that were there, and talking to Tom. He's from Stiles University. I'll have his card here in a minute, but Stiles University, Stiles Corporation, they're a woodworking manufacturer, and they actually have a university that help people learn about woodworking. It's like, how cool is that? Just a sec here. I want to get this right. So it's Tom Allott from Stiles, and they run that university. Amanda Conger was also a part of that, the Cabinet Makers Association, and that's the bridge right there. I think that is the bridge, and that's where I'm going to try and invest a lot of my time here in the next, I don't know, I got about 30 years of teaching left, so I'm going to be about then. So that was just phenomenal in and of itself. Being at that presentation and making those connections. I'm going to have a whole dedicated podcast, just looking at the time now. It'll have to be a whole dedicated podcast of the connections that I made over there. But after that was done, went back to the booth, had about an hour left, and then the IWF, International Woodworker Fair. I'm going to try to not do abbreviations so much, because everybody in the woodworking world will know them, but I mean, I just basically learned these the past week. So the International Woodworking Fair had a happy hour afterwards for the Wood Industry Association partners. And so if you were a part of that, or if your company was a part of that, you got to stay for a free pop or a glass of wine or something. And I wrapped up the show there, passed forward any of my leads, and then I headed over to the happy hour, and a lot of the sales staff went with for about an hour or so. And I'll tell this story in the Connections podcast, but just the people I run into in the line and some of the other big players there, it was just phenomenal. I mean, the outreach opportunity doesn't exist anywhere else in education other than being at the IWF. So look for that next, this is a commercial for the next episode, okay? Look for that next episode about why you should send your teachers there. I also got to experience the Wood Network, the Woodshop magazine. Brian is also tied in with the other dealers and even his competitors. Grizzly, Maureen Johnson, Original Saw Tracks. I mean, they're competitors and they're dealers that kind of go against some of what we do here. And there's a lot of crossover too. And so just getting to network with all these people are just amazing that I get to share my project plans with, and I get to show them what I'm doing. And a lot of them went and subscribed to this podcast right on Sight and Scene at that happy hour, so that was cool. And it wasn't like it was this drunken fest, like it was just little tiny things, and pretty much everybody was hungry. I hadn't eaten at this point too, so I decided I'm just going to stay dry and had a water, and I had a great big dinner later. But I'll talk about that when I kind of talk about my experience, my personal experience at IWF. That one will just be kind of for my friends and those folks. I'll have it open, but I'll have it kind of listed as like, this is what it was like in my what I did in the hotel and what I did at the airport. And I'm not one to get out, so I might as well talk a little bit about it while I got the opportunity. So shared my project with them, and I'm so grateful, because I couldn't do this. Brian Donahue had this vision of bringing me with, because I couldn't do it on my own, and he said there'll be a lot of value for you to come down and he made the case against me, saying, like, I've got 3 kids under 4 years old. Like, I sounds great. Can't make it. Maybe in a decade. Is kind of how I billed it to him at first. But he just pushed and pushed and pushed. And it wasn't like he was trying to manipulate. He was just, describing it. And like, yes, we obviously share a passion for woodworking, man. But this is going to be a little bit more than what I'm capable of doing at this time. And my wife just brought the house. She is an incredible woman. And she stays home with our kids. And so she was able to make it happen. Brian Donahue at Safety Speed made it happen. So that was pretty cool. Otherwise, that was kind of day one. So it was really organically Safety Speed dedicated. And then I tried to post as much as I could on the social accounts that I got to kind of just tell people, like, hey, I'm here. There were a lot of places that I had circled. And Brian actually asked me to submit to him a list of things that I wanted to see. But I wanted to give Safety Speed my best, so I basically told everybody, like, come see me at Safety Speed, and I told them the booth number and had it on my story and all these other silly places that the people are at now. And that second day, with Brian's connections and those who are interested in me, equated to about 50-50 as far as, like, what my time looked like if I was talking about Safety Speed or talking about my project. And a ton of teachers came by that second day, and it was just great to network with them. And I kind of figured out the lay of the land, too. If they had a lanyard on with a little green stripe, that meant they were an educator, and so I could tackle them in the aisle and say, hey, I'm not, pretend I don't have the Safety Speed shirt on. Let's talk education here real quick, and kind of get their low down. Or even, too, just kind of naturally, I'd be talking to someone who walked into our booth who owns a cabinet shop, and then I to tell them about my project. I had a QR code, believe it or not. I had a QR code too that I was asking people to scan just so that they can discover me. And the husband said to his wife, he's like, oh, well, actually, this is the gal you want to talk to because she's in administration here at the Tech College at Fox Valley. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, yes, forget about you. Like, let's talk education here. And so those kind of interactions kind of defined my second day. And the third day, well, I guess I should go on. The second day, too, was the night at the Tabernacle. And even before that, Safety Speed and Original Saw took a whole bunch of the dealers out to, and our sales staff out to dinner at this real nice restaurant downtown Atlanta. And a place I would not frequent just based on the price of the meat. And they picked up the check for both their companies and all the dealers that cross-pollinate between Original Saw and Safety Speed. And such great connections there because I sat by the president and owner of Original Saw and was able to pick his brain and tell him about my project. And his family joined him too, and so it was an opportunity to see him as a dad and a human being. You kind of forget at times, like these are dads and moms and sons and daughters. Like it's a real nice thing to see an industry that is so wholesome and good people. And so that was great. But then that evening we had night at the Tabernacle. And to be honest, that first hour that we were there, I was excited to hang out with the sales staff. A bunch of them went out and got dressed up. I just hung out in it was a Hawaiian shirt day here. And so I'm not usually a Hawaiian shirt guy, but I bit the bullet and did that. And the first hour was fun hanging out with those guys. But then after a while, it was like, oh boy, this is a concert venue. It's super loud. I'm ready to retire back to the hotel because I'm running on fumes. But then the president or the chairman of the board of the WIA, the Wood Industry Association, comes out and gives a tech award to the manufacturing company that's just leading the charge. And then he introduces Mark Smith, the Educator of the Year, and my jaw just drops because I saw this guy the day before at the happy hour event for the WIA, and it was just kind of a passing conversation. He gave me a good attaboy, but then I see him up on stage receiving this major award. It's an award, too, only offered every other year because they only do the IWF every other year. So this is not just Teacher of the Year. This is essentially half Teacher of the Decade, and my jaw's on the floor, and I couldn't believe it. Like, that's the guy I talked to yesterday, and we're kind of off maybe stage right, and I tell the other sales guys at Safety Speed, like, hey, if you see him walk by, tackle him because I want to talk to him. And it's a mixer kind of event, so we actually had one of our biggest dealers there, and Brian was talking with me and this dealer, and they're pretty big time guys that I want to put my best foot forward on. And so we're talking about the industry and my project and the partnership with Safety Speed. And then Mark Smith walks by, and the sales staff tapped me on the shoulder like, hey, he's walking by. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got some decisions to make, like the Michael Jordan of the tech ed woodshop world, or my boss and our almost number one client. Like, okay, well, hey, guys, I'll be right back. Okay, let's continue this in a minute. And so I charge across. I probably looked like just a maniac coming at him, but luckily he recognized me from the day before, and I'd been reaching out to him on Instagram Messenger too throughout this whole thing too, trying to connect with him more. And I got him out, almost to the exit, and he was obviously on his way out. It wasn't his scene. And I asked, like, could I just have a picture? And so he had time for a picture with me, and that's on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else I can post it, because that's like, if I would have seen Tom Brady and Michael Jordan that same day, okay, that's fine. But I got to see Mark Smith. We got a picture together, and like I said, he was on his way out, and so I just asked if he would stop by the Safety Speed booth that next day, which was kind of my model, and I hated to do that to him, to tell him to come to me, but I'm trying to do my best here, and so I just put that out to him, and he's like, yep, all right, 10:30, 11, I'll stop by, and he did. He made good on it, and that shut my night down. I think that was the greatest part of the night, for sure, running into him and getting that confirmation, like, we'll connect in the morning. And yeah, he's true to his word. That third day started out. Third day, I actually went to Waffle House that third day. That was just phenomenal. I definitely recommend the Waffle House if you're down south of the Mason-Dixie line, is kind of where they're at, is from what I understand. But let's see. That day kind of started with me getting right out. It was after 2 days of big time labor. So everybody's kind of tired. Everybody's kind of sleepy, and getting coffee into them. And actually, I kind of had a stomachache that morning, and so I actually didn't have coffee yet. But I'm working on the half-sheet coffee table, and take a little break, went out and got coffee. And when I came back, a couple people had interest in our saws, so I talked to them. And then guy in the booth I don't recognize, he's like, hey, I'm looking for Bobby Miller, and I'm a friend of Mark Smith's. And I'm like, oh, my God, okay, cool, all right, yeah, here I am. And he's like, yeah, I'm texting Mark right now. And he it was really kind of funny, too, because it's such a big place. It really is difficult to find these massive booths. Even the big booth of Safety Speed was kind of hard to find at times. So I actually see him on his phone and his buddy texting each other at the same time. So I just holler, hey, Mark, come out here. And we talk, and he shares gold. I mean, just things I would have never thought of, things that are so cutting edge. And I was able to share some things to him that he was, from what he said, pretty impressed by, which is just the biggest compliment that I could receive. So that was phenomenal. And after that, I introduced him to Brian Donahue, president of Safety Speed. The three of us got a picture together, and he just kept hammering on that. It matters who you know. It matters who you know. And that's what he communicated to me, like, it matters who you know. So that's what I'm trying to communicate here. So I talked with him for about a half hour, introduced him to Brian, talked some National Wood Sports stuff, and sadly Mark's only got a year left, but he said he's not leaving the industry. He's just leaving the school that he's at for a little semi-retirement, from what it sounds like. So I'm really excited to get to know him and work with him more. The rest of that third day, I got to walk a little bit. I saw the Styles booth. I got to be on the Woodworking Network's podcast with Will Sampson. That was a experience, I'll tell you what, and that'll be on that next podcast of why you should send your shop teachers down, because that networking opportunity was second to none. I got to make another round of connections walks, and so that third day I was hardly in the booth at all, sadly. I got that half-sheet coffee table done, but after that it really wasn't all that fruitful for selling saws up until the end. But yeah, we did the podcast. That was actually in a different hall that I had not been in. And I thought we were in, this great big auditorium. And then, Woodworking Network's hall or booth location is in Hall A. And so walk up the concourse, down the stairs, up around. And it's like, okay, I've only seen across the building maybe half. Because Shop Saver was there, Woodmiser was there, Shaper was there. And it's like, okay. After the podcast, I hit some of those booths, and kind of the beauty of being with these machinery companies is they don't kick you out when you're done. So after that happy hour, after that third day, after I walked a little bit, we had some meetings with some of the other dealers and distributors and manufacturers too. And so I got to, and some of the sales staff went home, that's fine, or went back to the hotel. I just couldn't get enough of it, so I kept in for more and went to the meetings, even though I was kind of the third wheel and kind of fly on the wall. But, I got to learn so much, even just the industry and how deals go down. That was exciting. And I get an opportunity to walk these booths and see exactly what's going on, even if there's no one in them or the machinery is not running. Like I got to see that. And last little thing I got to say right now before I don't have to say it, I'm very honored to say it, because that whole time working the booth, we actually, Safety Speed has got a partnership with Cab Master Software. They're out of Australia. They're the biggest cabinet making software in Australia. And they were in our booth, occupied space, and I don't get out much, okay? So I haven't experienced much of the Australian population. And they were very kind. Accent was very cool. Quiet individuals, so I didn't talk too much to them the first couple days. I showed them how I drew my one-sheet bookshelf plan on their CAD software the first day. I actually drew this earlier in the summer and had some trouble with it because I'm not with the software, just trouble me trying to figure it out. And so I called their tech support. They walked me through it like just masterclass. They were just on top of it. And so that was a good experience. I told them that too, and they were very pleased to hear that. And they took some pictures of me with the shelf, with the blueprints, and put that through their marketing stuff, which is weird for me because I'm not the ideal model. I'm just a builder. I'm a cabinet maker. Last summer I was just trying out, essentially building some specialty stuff for churches and schools, and now I'm on marketing side of it. So that's just a rapid shift for me, but it was rather slow for them, which is kind of a bummer to hear. Usually they go to shows and they've got 2 or 3 people in line waiting for a demonstration of their software. So I was a little bit discouraged to hear that on their side, because their software is top tier. I mean, that's phenomenal. And the guys that were there, just respectful, so nice. Took pictures of our staff whenever we needed that, team picture. And we actually went out to dinner with them the last night after the show, along with some other machinery companies. And it's kind of funny how it works out, where they just kind of pair off to go out to these dinners, because everybody's hungry. Everybody's been working all day, and they kind of want to keep the conversation going a little bit less formal. And so we met at this barbecue place about 7 miles outside of Atlanta. Just phenomenal. I maybe ate a third of it, but I sat next to the Cab Master guys, and I didn't realize that the older guy that was there, he was the actual owner of the company, and their ownership structure and the history of their company was just fascinating to learn about. I'm not a business guy, so some of it was right over my head, but it was just great to hear about it, and I got to share some of my project. And towards the end of the meal, he said, "You know what? Let's talk about a seat of CAD Master for your school." And it is in the works right now, so I don't know what it'll look like, but that is over a $3,000 donation, essentially giving me a seat for their software, and it'll be an educator seat. So I'll have access to some of the things that you want to be able to buy. And really kind of disgusting thing too, just kind of talking off books here, is that he doesn't advertise the educator seat because it'll be manipulated by other companies that just want that cheaper version of that high-powered software. So if you're an industry member and you're doing that, you got to stop. You're hurting education by doing that, and you're hurting your future employees. So that was a little bit about what he got to share with me after a little bit of a time at the restaurant. And I'm so grateful. I mean, Safety Speed sent me. They didn't have to. They could have put me in the plant building saws, and honestly, I would have been just as happy personally, but professionally, this was just an opportunity like I've never had before. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I want to thank again Safety Speed, our sponsors for this episode, and the sponsor for me to go down to IWF and check out their saws, their edge bander, wide belt sander, and screw pocket machines. I'll have another episode containing some of the connections that I made at IWF in the next installment. So look for that upcoming. Thank you all. Bye.